And welcome back. Or just welcome if you're new here. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are back to discuss the absolutely fantastic surprise sequel by Ty West to his movie X called Pearl. Written by him and Mia Goth. So it was directed by Ty West, and it was written by Ty West and Mia Goth, starring Mia Goth, David Corenswet, and Tandi Wright. Yeah, okay. So yes, we're going to get into that. Now, I really don't know if I've ever seen anything happen like that. I mean, except for maybe Fear Street, but that was on TV. That was cable, but sort of like a mini-series, and that you had 3 movies appear within, 1, 2, 3 weeks. But as far as feature film, I don't know. How was it released? In any event, X came out. X was a huge hit for Ty West, and it's definitely in one of my top 10 of all 2022, top 10 horror movies of 2022. And he surprised everyone in that he had filmed simultaneously. He had filmed Pearl, and so he was able to almost immediately release it and pretty much blow everybody away that there was a sequel to the movie just like that after X. And I think that was very cool. But if you haven't, now that I've seen them both, I would of course watch Pearl before I watched X, because Pearl is a prequel. But at the same time, watching X and then watching Pearl answers a lot of questions. But if you watch Pearl first and then watch X, you wouldn't have any questions, because the fucking bitch is crazy to begin with, and you'd know she was. So, whichever way you want to do it. But most of us saw X first, so Pearl answered a lot of questions. I loved the way this movie was filmed. Because it's filmed like The Wizard of Oz. It's filmed like a Technicolor from the 1940s and 50s is exactly what it looks like. It looks like a classic Technicolor film, and I thought that was amazing. The way this movie, it was just such an interesting cinematography. When the movie came on, you were just like, it looks so different than the movies that you've seen. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because right at the beginning I was just kind of really blown away by the cinematography. It literally looked like off the top of my head, it would be like the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, or that Marilyn Monroe movie. That's what it reminded me of, the cinematography, that Marilyn Monroe movie where she's going down the river. It's sitting right over there, and I can't remember the name. But anyway, it really looks like a movie filmed in 1950s Technicolor, and that was really cool. The colors are so bright and vibrant, and the reds are so red, and everything is so Technicolor. What else could I say? But so we open the movie at Pearl's home, and Pearl is fantasizing about being a star. This is stuff that we kind of knew from the stuff she said in X. She's obsessed with being a dancer, she's obsessed with being a star, and we have her mom chastising her, who is obviously an extreme stereotype of a brutal German harpy. She's like, really, I'd have killed her too. I'm sorry to say. Maybe not for the same reasons that Pearl did, because Pearl's just a psycho, But the I would have had to have gotten away with that mom, or something bad would have happened. Um, so we see that she kind of hates her life. She's already married to Howard. He's off in World War I, so he's off that, and she's left alone to take care of her. And I really felt sorry for the dad. He's something, whatever. They never really said what it was, but he was a plegic. And I don't know if it was an illness or an injury, but he was paralyzed, so he was in a wheelchair and had to be fed and taken care of. And this is all taking place in 1918. So I love the cinema in town, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Follow the notes, okay? So she's having to take care of her father. Husband Howard is off in the war. She then goes to get his medicine, and while she's there, we get to see this really beautiful cinema from 1918. I mean, Ty West did a great job recreating the time period. And the movie posters that are on the wall, like Cleopatra with Theta. I love Cleopatra, with Bar Theta. I love that movie. I love Theta Bara. Theta Bara is like one of my favorite from that era. She's like the original goth girl, is Theta Bara. So she meets, she goes in and she watches the movie. She's taking swigs of her daddy's medicine. And when she leaves, she meets the projectionist. To my knowledge, that's how he's listed. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a name. Well, he does have a name, but they never say it. But he's just listed as the projectionist. Gorgeous, gorgeous guy. He's all those things. But so she meets him, where he kind of feeds her obsession about, being in the chorus line, telling her that she's so beautiful and all that, probably just what she needs to hear. He even tells her she can come back anytime for free viewings. He gives her a film frame, which she then loses, which I felt sorry for her, but she loses on the way home. It blows out of her overalls. She was wearing overalls. And then we have a very, very disturbing scene where she basically goes out into the middle of this cornfield and engages in sexual activity after dancing with a scarecrow. And I'm like, I can tell this movie. I mean, I've seen X, so I know the woman is batshit. But when she has sexual relations with the scarecrow, I was like, this is going to be bad, isn't it? This is not going to go well for these people. So she does that. She gets back home, and the mother is her usual harpy self. Then she has a very disturbing scene where she likes to take a bath. Well, she has to go and clean her dad. Like, her mom makes her do everything, which is why I'm saying me and her would have had a problem. But, she bitches at her when she comes home, for instance, like, go in there and clean your father up and don't let him sit in shit. And I'd be like, bitch, what you doing? I was at the store getting his medicine. Yeah, sure, I stopped off and saw a movie and shit, but, what are you doing that you making me go clean him? Never mind. But she has these really disturbing scenes where she takes a bath in front of her dad and bathes him, and I'm like, please don't do anything gross, is what I was thinking. Because, I mean, it's her dad and he can't move. I mean, I don't even want to go there. But, so we have those, creepy scenes, and she, like, pinches him, and she, like, chokes him for a little bit. And, of course, we had seen her, a spectacular scene that opened it all was when she killed the goose. after she, was performing in the barn for her farm animals. Then she kills this goose, and you're like, that bitch is crazy. And she takes it to the gator, which we finally get to know the gator's name, and the gator's name is Theta. So I guess it's a girl. It's a girl. Well, it is a girl because we get to see her eggs later on. But so she goes and feeds this goose to Theta, and that was, she's been. That's an old. I mean, that. How long do crocodiles live? Because this was 1918, and when did X take place? 1978. So that's an old crocodile in that farm, But so she does that. I put down the mother is such a tyrant I would kill her myself. Yes, this is true. So we get to meet Howard's mom and Howard's sister. They stop by to help because there's the Spanish influenza is going around, so everybody's wearing masks and all, which it was interesting the way they did that because it mirrored the pandemic. This movie takes place in a pandemic as well, so everybody's wearing masks, and it almost makes you think, wow, 1918, 2020, 2022, but everybody's wearing masks. So that was an interesting cinematic thing that he did there. But so they are all isolating like we did last year and the year before, and we get to meet Mitzi, and that's his sister, and his mom, and they bring a cooked pig, which of course she refuses to take. The mom is like, we don't take a charity. Wait, I just sounded Transylvanian there and not German. But anyway, we don't take charity, and the woman is just like, oh my God, it's just a pig, fuck off. And so they leave. Now in the meantime, Mitzi had told Pearl that she had a secret, and that was that there was a dance troupe holding auditions at a church not far away for a state dance troupe that would be touring the state. And did Pearl want to come and go audition with her? And later on, of course, I'm like, girl, you should have never done that. If you just had not done that, you wouldn't have been involved in the later incidents. But so she's like, oh God, yes, of course. So now that they did that, Pearl is all excited about going to this dance, and she agrees to sneak out. She ends up going out and visiting the projectionist again at night. She gets all dressed up, and he shows her a stag film, talking about Europe. We could go to Europe and stuff like that. Even though he knows she's married, we can go to Europe, and he shows her, which was interesting to see, an actual stag film from 1918, because they did make them. As soon as filmmaking began, we as human beings immediately, even in the silent era, as soon as you could make films, it wasn't hardly any time before they were making porn. Humans were making porn within a year of making the first film. So it was interesting to see that little bit of fact. So they end up, she gets all excited about maybe going to Europe and that he likes her. And she gets back home, her mom's crying. And she had kind of taken some of the stuff he had said to heart about, living your life while you're young, not waiting and stuff like that. You get to then see a scene in which she takes the dad out to Theta, to the gator, and she's almost fisting to feed him to it. And you can tell how terrified the dad is. And that's a horrible position to be in, right? To be a plegic and to be being around a psycho. You can't speak. You can't do anything about anything they do to you. And what a horrible, horrible, terrifying thing. It's not that Metallica song, One. You know, you can't do anything about it. So I felt really, really bad for the father. You know, can you imagine being in that situation and having this psycho around you and not knowing when, where, and how this psycho is going to harm you and torture you? And there is absolutely nothing. You've got no way to communicate that how much danger you're in. But the mom interrupts her, and so she doesn't get to do that. And then at dinner, her and her mom had went through her room. Now in X, that bunkhouse was where they rented it to the porn maker. But now it's her little playroom, play place. Her mom had went through it and had found the Dance Follies program that she had, where she had seen the movie. And they get into this huge fight in which, you know, the poor father is sitting there having to witness it. And she ends up, you know, the fight is phenomenal. And they both tell all kinds of truths, including the mother. It's the one time you were like, well, maybe I see why the mom has been such a bitch. And that is, the mom tells her, you know, I know what you are. The reason I don't want you going anywhere and the reason I don't want you off this farm isn't because I'm a bitch. It's because I know you're evil. I know you're a psycho. And I know that you're going to go out there and hurt people and they don't know what you are, but I do. And you're like, oh, okay, I see why she probably dislikes Pearl. I mean, what are you going to do if you knew your kid was a psycho? Remember, this is 1918. So they end up in a huge fight in which the mother actually goes up in flames because she gets, you know, Pearl pushes her up against the fireplace. She goes up in flames, and Pearl pours the hot soup like that's going to help. I mean, it put the fire out, but it was also boiling hot soup. But so she got burnt twice, and then she ends up like throwing her in the basement and walks out, leaves the father, who I really admire the actor who played the father, because he had to do all of his acting with his eyes. You know what I mean? All of his acting was done with his eyes. And you could see the absolute terror in his face, in his eyes. So she takes off, goes back to the to the projectionist, back to the cinema, where they end up sleeping together. And she wakes up the next morning, and he comes to drive her home. Biggest mistake he ever made. So he comes to drive her home. She's like, hold on a second, let me go in first. She goes in, she tries to clean her dad up a little bit, who has been sitting in that exact same spot. I just want to remember, that's one of the horriblest things about this movie, is the terror of that poor man. So he had sat there in that exact spot when she had burnt her mother up. And now here he was still sitting there. So she takes him in there, cleans him up a little bit, gives him some of his medicine, which is, I'm sure, just sedative. It was probably opium, is probably what it was. Or laudanum. It could have been laudanum. I don't think they said what the medicine was, but I bet it was opium or laudanum. Probably laudanum in 1918. But either way, whatever. So, because they were just drinking it. So it probably wasn't morphine. It was laudanum. I bet it was laudanum. In any event, the guy comes in. She's like all over him. And he starts, she introduces him to the dad. You could just see it in the dad's eyes. The dad was probably like going, run, motherfucker, run. But he goes upstairs. She's all over him. He keeps hearing some kind of knocking and thumping. And he's like, that could be your dad. Get off me. They go down there, and she ends up telling him that the dog had made a mess in the kitchen. That's what the mess was. And that she had put him down in the basement. So she explained it away acceptably. And she would have got away with it if she wasn't such a fucking psycho and so ditzy. It's like, So he follows her out there to the barn where she's, showing him their animals. And then he telling them the name and stuff. And he asks, well, what's the dog's name? And I was like, oh, don't do that. And she was like, oh, no, we don't have no dog. And he's like, but you said, and she's like, oh. And he's like, oh. Well, I think I really need to get back to work. And I'm like, you're too fucked. Too late, man. Too late. You nosy. You asked one too many questions. And so, of course, she loses her fucking mind. And she's like, and Mia Goth is so good because the way she escalated was exactly the way a violent psychopath would escalate. It's like, why did you just go cold on me? She starts out, why did you just go cold on me? I didn't. I've just got to get back to work. No, you're lying. Why are you lying? Why don't you like me anymore? And it's like, here it comes. It's a fucking psychopath fixing a blow, And I'm like, oh, no. So he's like, everything's cool. I just got to get back to work. He goes and gets in the car. She comes at him. Stabs that poor boy with a pitchfork twice. He tries to drive away. Ugly, bloody, fantastic kill scene. She manages to catch up with him, pulls him out of the car, throws him on the ground, and then puts a pitchfork right through his, And you're like, damn. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. So then she goes in like nothing. Dresses her daddy up. Gives him a bath, dresses her daddy up, and puts him in the thing and then she gets all dressed up and she goes to this dance audition with Mitzi. Beautiful scene. She gets in there, she finally, does the audition, and they don't want her. She's like, no, you're not what we're looking for. We've got plenty of perfect dancers like you. We just want an all-American blondie like Mitzi. And girl freaks the fuck out, right? Mitzi comes out, doesn't tell her, takes her home, notices the pig that's still been sitting there for what, a week and a half now. It's covered in maggots and stuff. I wish they would have quit showing it, but it is a horror movie. So Mitzi again. See, that's what it is. People out there, listen to me. Listen to me. I'm going to give you a pro tip. Don't ask psychos questions. Well, Rusty, we don't know that they're psychos. But look, you ain't got to be around Pearl but a very short period of time to know that bitch is gone. Gone. Okay? If you have any suspicion that the person you are talking to is a psycho, don't ask them nothing. Agree with whatever they say. Sure, cool, man. Sounds great. Oh, man, you are the king. I got to go to work. Do something. Don't ask nothing. So anyway, Mitzi gets her home. Don't feel so bad. I'm so sorry. Oh, no, I just think something's wrong with me. There's just so many things I've never told anyone. And here we go. She's like, well, you can tell me. And I'm like, no, she can't tell you. You're asking questions. You're not listening to me, Mitzi. Okay? You're not listening to me. So she's like, oh, look, I'll pretend to be Howard. And you just tell me. I'm sure Howard will understand. You can practice on me. I'm like, bitch, you need to run. All right? You need to run. You should have been running 10 minutes ago. But okay, whatever. I'm just warning you. Just, all right, watch and see. So we have this absolutely fascinating peek into the mind of a pure, unadulterated, stripped to the bone psychopath. As she talks about her wants and dreams and shit like that. And then she basically just admits to being a psycho, admits to the murders. And I thought, well, Mitzi's got to be fucked now. She's admitting this shit. The look on Mitzi's face when she was through with this monologue, which was flawless. The look on Mitzi's face was just like, well, I really should be going home now. And I'm like, yeah, you're fucked. Because she just basically admitted to killing her mama, killing her daddy, whom she had smothered. You know. She admitted to screwing the projectionist. Did she admit to killing him? I think she admitted to killing him too. But she just admitted all that. And then Missy's just going to be like, well, I guess I should be running along now, you know, and Pearl is like, you know, do you think I'm bad? Are you scared of me? No, not at all. No. Not at all. You know, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just need to get back because Mommy will be worried. And so she does leave. And sure enough, Pearl comes out the house, walks straight over there, grabs an axe. Mitzi's like, no, I told you not to ask the bitch nothing, but you had to. She takes off running. Pearl catches up to her, hacks her to death. We're talking Lizzie Borden ain't got shit on that, okay? Lizzie Borden didn't dismember a motherfucker. Lizzie Borden just hacked and whacked and walked on. But, so we get to see Pearl dismember Mitzi graphically and feed her to the gator, while she also had pushed, you know, she had also drove the projectionist off into the water. So the gator was eating good. And then she goes on back up to the house where she dresses, brings in her dad, dresses her mom, goes down into the basement, gets her dead mother, dresses her up, true Norman Bate fashion, puts him around the table, and actually carves that pig that's been rotting on the porch for a week and a half, covered in maggots, and sets a table, and sits down and prays, and you're like, all questions have been answered. It's like, yeah, I can look at X in an entirely different, you know, no wonderment there anymore. So we then see Howard coming home. He gets off the truck in his little World War I soldier suit, which is so cute. And he goes up to the house and he walks in, and there is the table that's now got mold on it, so it's probably several days later. He sees all that, and then there's Pearl, who walks into the room with like a big pitcher of lemonade, and she's like, oh, Howard, I'm so glad you're home. And he just looks at her like, what the absolute far end of hell kind of fuck? And then she just smiles, and the Technicolor credits from 1940 like roll. And you're like, yeah, wow. That was fucking flawless. That movie was great. And it was. It was absolutely a flawless movie. Everything about that. Ty West. You know, I can't wait to see Maxine the Third. I can't wait to see that. It's kind of sucky that we got to wait to see that, unlike we were able to see Pearl. But it was all a surprise anyway. So, yeah. If you've seen Pearl, tell me what you think about it in the comments. And yeah, my score for Pearl is 9.5 out of 10, which, I'm fair. I always round up at International Movie Database, so it's a 10. My personal score is a 9.5, and everybody, I mean, if you know me, I don't. My personal score is different than what I publicly give it. So on International Movie Database, I gave it a 10 because it's a 10 out of 10. Personally, for me, though, it just means that there was a little something missing. There was a little something that I wish had been in there. It was just totally personal, had nothing to do with the movie. I know what it is. What's that? What? They didn't show the projectionist sass. Is that it? I fucking hate him. Anyway, like I was saying, it's just a personal thing. Little things that are left out of a movie that I wish had been there to make it that perfect 10 for me. But it's a 10 out of 10. But it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me because I have my reasons. But let me know what you thought of Pearl if you've seen it. And I will see you in the next one. And love you, miss you, bye. And always remember and never forget, you're a wonderfully, very special and unique individual. Even if you're not a raving fucking psycho named Pearl, you're still a wonderful person. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you, bye. Thanks for spending a little time with me while I talked about Pearl 2022, directed by Ty West and written by Ty West and Mia Goth. And can't wait for Maxine and see what he does next. I am really, really impressed by this man. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.